Hello and welcome back to Blue Flag Bandits, the series that drives F1's worst cars since 2010, so you don't have to, in the mostly desperate hunt for points. And you join us once again in Barcelona for our pre-season testing race for our 2013 drive, the Marussia MR02. First things first, if you've played F1 2013, you may know that Jerez is available if you've got the historic content, and Jerez was one of the other pre-season testing venues. Believe me when I say driving this car against this AI in Jerez was tricky. Yeah, it was very tricky. So we returned to Barcelona instead for a more normal entry to the series, or at least this season. Before we get into all the changes for 2030, let's take a moment to review our 2012 in the HRT F1 12. It was a season punctuated by penalties. A lot of penalties that may or may not have been justified. However, we ended the season with 35 points, thanks to 2 podiums which were probably more lucky than skillful, and 1 further point score that was actually down to decent driving. It was also a season which saw us have to massively outperform our car, as the F1 12 was by far and away the slowest of the bunch. So not only beating Caterham and Marussia, but also beating Toro Rosso in the overall standings was quite the achievement. It does, however, mean that we return to the team that remains our best performer back in 2010. Red Bull were usurped in both Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. 2011 champion Vettel could only manage 5th in the standings, while Red Bull had to fight for 2nd in the Constructors with Ferrari. It was Lewis Hamilton who took the driver's crown in our 2012, with McLaren taking the Constructors as well. Let's then talk about our 4th season, 2013. The technical regulations were fairly static from the previous season, just minor changes to the cars. The platypus noses from the previous year were heavily criticised for their aesthetics, leading the FIA to allow modesty panels to be fitted to make them more visually pleasing. Wait for 2014, they'll just forget about that. The double DRS system that Mercedes had been developing through 2012 was also banned, while the minimum weight was raised to compensate for the new tyres from Pirelli. Tyres which, as the season progresses, get a lot more criticism than before. There were some minor sporting changes as well, one necessitated by the demise of HRT. With 2 less cars on the grid, the number of cars eliminated in the first part of qualifying was changed from 7 to 6, with a further 6 eliminated in Q2. The use of DRS was also altered, the FIA now only permitting to be used in designated areas in practice and qualifying, rather than the unrestricted usage we'd seen in the past few seasons. The driver market had been shook during the 2012 season, with Lewis Hamilton announcing his move to Mercedes to replace the retiring Michael Schumacher, with Sergio Perez moving from Sauber to McLaren. This led to other changes across the grid, kind of a domino effect. Nico Hülkenberg swapped Force India for Perez's Sauber seat, the German being joined by Esteban Gutierrez, which meant that Kamui Kobayashi was left without a drive, and instead moved to the World Endurance Championship for 2013, while Adrian Sutil returned to Force India. Bruno Senna was dropped by Williams and replaced by Valtteri Bottas to partner Maldonado. and Charles Pic moved from Marussia to Caterham, while Kovalainen moved to Lotus as their reserve driver. This meant that Guido van der Garde took the other Caterham seat after Petrov was dropped. Timo Glock moved to DTM after being dropped by Marussia, meaning that Marussia fielded an all-new lineup of Ferrari junior Jules Bianchi and Brit Max Chilton. After Formula One ran a 20-race calendar in 2012, the 2013 season saw one drop off, returning to a 19-race season as we'd had previously. The European Grand Prix was the race to fall, the Valencia Street Circuit hosting its last race in 2012, and then rapidly becoming Scrubland. There had been plans for a race in New Jersey to host an American double-header, but it would never come to pass. There were talks of another race in Europe to replace the prospective New Jersey Grand Prix, but no suitable circuit could be found, thus meaning only 19 races. This season, however, would see the final runnings of both the Korean and Indian Grand Prix. As mentioned, Formula One lost a team between 2012 and 2013, with HRT going into liquidation just after the final race in Brazil. Despite the FIA once again, much like they had in 2009-10, announcing cost-cutting measures, no buyer could be found and no replacements entered the field, meaning that there were 22 cars and 11 teams to take the first race in Australia. With all the background, it's time to talk about our challenger for 2013, the Marussia MR02. The second Marussia and fourth car from the Banbury-based team since their entry as Virgin Racing in 2010 ran a Cosworth engine, much like their previous entries. However, the MR02 was also the first car from this team that included a KERS system, meaning that it's also the first KERS system shod car that we will drive. Boy, have I been looking forward to that. It was also the first Marussia to make it to pre-season testing, being launched in time for every single test, something the team hadn't managed in either of their previous 3 seasons, if you include the Virgin Racing years as well. Despite the positives and even the technical partnership with McLaren, the demise of HRT meant the Marussia was now the slowest car on the grid, behind the Renault-powered Caterham. However, the season started well for Marussia. Both drivers out-qualified both Caterhams in the opening round in Australia, and things would get better in Malaysia. Jules Bianchi managed to take advantage of multiple retirements to finish in 13th, the team's best result of 2013. It would also be the best result of either Marussia or Caterham, and despite falling back as the season progressed, Marussia would finish ahead of Caterham in the Constructors' Championship on best result countback. Sebastian Vettel would take his 4th and final Drivers' Championship in comfortable fashion, securing the title by round 16 in India, leading to an iconic image of him bowing to his car at the end of the race. Alonso would once again take 2nd, though this time much further back than before, ahead of Mark Webber. Lewis Hamilton would finish his first season at Mercedes in 4th, somewhat ahead of both McLarens. Red Bull would take the Constructors' title by a whopping 236 points, ahead of Mercedes, who were beginning to wind up to the turbo hybrid era that would begin in 2014. So we're returning to Banbury for a season where Marussia didn't finish bottom. Hopefully that could mean we'll have a good season, right? Well, judging by how far off the pace we were in Spain for our pre-season races, you can see battling with just the Caterhams and the other Marussia, we may only really be battling those guys all season. But we did say the same thing last year in the HRT, and somehow we took 2 podiums, albeit luckily, and that one really good race in India. So I'd say never count us out. It's going to be another challenging season. So the low bar of 2011 is still the one we really need to get over before we can start gunning for our spectacular 2010. The settings are the same as they have been over the opening 3 seasons. Legendary AI, TC on, racing lines, and 50% races with rules and flags. Penalties as sensitive in F1 2013 as they were in F1 2012. So we've got to try and be careful with our moves. But with HRT's demise, we need to compare ourselves to a new team alongside Caterham in our qualifying and race results. As you may have noticed over the course of the series so far, every race I'll give you a little top 6 and bottom 6, or top 6 and qualifying new teams as it was. It's now going to be race select and race top 6, qualifying select, qualifying top 6. So that's obviously going to be Marussia and Caterham, but we need somebody else to compare ourselves to. For 2013, that team was Williams, as they finished just above Caterham and Marussia in the standings, but below everybody else. Once Caterham leave the sport at the end of 2014, it'll be 2 of the other lowest ranked teams that we show in the results, and then when Manor leave in 2016, it'll be the team we drive for and the other 2 lowest. So the likes of McLaren, Honda, Haas, Sauber and Williams for pretty much the entirety of the series, because I'm recording this while 2025 is still ongoing. So I can't give you an answer yet as to who 2025 is going to be between Haas, Alpine and probably Sauber. Here we go again. Into another new car, another new season and another new challenge as we replace Max Chilton in the Marussia MR02 and partner Jules Bianchi in the red, white and black machine. We've got 19 races to try and avoid a 0-point score before entering a new era for Formula 1, turbo hybrid era. Hopefully you enjoy the show. Hopefully it's not going to be a long, slow demise to nothingness. And hopefully you'll join us in round 1 in Australia. The MR02. What's the worst that can happen? Thank you so much for watching this brief intro to this season. I'll leave you with the car driving around Barcelona for just a little bit longer. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. You know the drill. Bye now. I shall see you for round 1 in Australia 2013. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Bye for now.